Protesters in Washington, D.C. are demanding the nation's capital to divest from Wells Fargo and reinvest in local communities. Our District Wire News correspondent Irene Serrano has more on the story.
Financing climate disaster and the abuse of indigenous peoples is resulting in a massive global divestment movement. More than 20 people gathered this morning outside the D.C. City Council building to call upon divesting local tax money out of Wells Fargo. D.C. Reinvest Coalition organizer John Kwa told us more about the initiatives and why this event is taking place today.
We're here today because today is a set of actions across the globe called Nazasca Talks. Essentially, right now, 92 of the world's largest banks are in Sao Paulo, Brazil, discussing climate change and indigenous sovereignty, even while many of them continue to majorly finance pipeline infrastructure.
According to Jared Carrasco, it is not only indigenous people who should be protesting against conglomerates like Wells Fargo.
DC in particular, Wells Fargo has targeted the Southeast community. As Sarko was saying, they've had employees that came out and said that Wells Fargo has influenced their employees to go to these communities, and they call them ghetto loans, and that in itself is already racist to call those ghetto loans.
The fight against banks that finance pipelines across the country does not stop here for Jar and John. They will be at Georgetown's waterfront on November 4th to protest the Potomac pipeline. For District Wire News, I'm Irene Serrano.
Thousands of classified documents from the John F. Kennedy assassination will be released to the public this Thursday. The 1992 law on JFK files officially expires on October 26th, unless national security or law enforcement agencies believe the documents should continue to be held. About 88% of these classified records are available to the public already through the National Archives. The other 12% have been censored or are top secret.
Congressional efforts to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 election are dwindling. The House and Senate committees looking into the case have run into a number of problems. The Senate Judiciary Committee's inquiry has barely started, and the Senate Intelligence Committee doesn't believe they will find anything. Republicans are eager to close the investigation while Democrats continue to raise unanswered questions.
The Secretary of State is on an unannounced trip to Iraq today, pledging U.S. support to its government after Taliban attacks killed more than 200 people in the past week. Secretary Rex Tillerson met with the Afghan president today, according to officials in both countries. President Trump announced in August he'd send about 4,000 more troops to Afghanistan, bringing the total to 13,500 in the country. Tillerson will visit Pakistan Tuesday.
Kurdish and Arab forces backed by the United States successfully reclaimed Syria's biggest oil field from ISIS yesterday. ISIS fighters have controlled the Al-Amar oil field in Syria since 2014. Now the terror group has lost the majority of its claim over oil fields in Syria and Iraq. ISIS fighters are currently trapped on the eastern side of Syria, blocked on one side by the U.S. fighters and the other side by the Syrian regime.
The widow of Sergeant LaDavid Johnson said she has nothing to say to President Trump, whose condolence call catapulted her to national attention. In her first public statement since she took the call from the president last week, Maisha Johnson told Good Morning America that the phone call made her cry. Her husband died in an attack that also killed 3 other service members. The deadly operation is now under U.S. military investigation. Sergeant Johnson was buried in Cooper City, Florida over the weekend.
A new website that lets patients compare costs and quality of healthcare providers may reduce the cost of healthcare in the state of Maryland. The website provides the average cost for different procedures at various Maryland hospitals.
And I think it looks like a fantastic resource, partly because it not only helps you compare costs across hospitals, but it also has a feature that includes the opportunity to look at unexpected costs, like infections that might result from a surgery and complications and things like that. So I think it's wonderful that it gives you the option to look at not only costs, but also one indicator of quality of care.
WhereTheCost.org, started by the Maryland Healthcare Commission, provides consumers with cost and quality information of local healthcare options. It is part of the Health Commission's Where the Cost initiative, which aims to start a local conversation about healthcare costs and quality. The state of Maryland hopes to improve the quality and reduce the cost of care throughout the state with the initiative.
The Maryland Insurance Administration is considering new premium rate hikes proposed by health insurance companies. The companies are asking to raise rates following President Trump's decision to eliminate Affordable Care Act subsidies that help low-income people. The agency will hold a public hearing this afternoon.
The Food and Drug Administration approved a new vaccine for shingles late Friday, marking the second shingles vaccine released in the U.S. Shingles can cause a painful skin rash. It's most common in older adults and is triggered by a virus that reactivates chickenpox inside the body. About 1/3 of people who have had chickenpox get shingles. Studies show the new vaccine prevents shingles in about 90% of people, compared with 50% effectiveness in the old vaccine.
The Environmental Protection Agency asked 2 of its scientists and 1 contractor not to speak at a scientific conference in Providence, Rhode Island on Monday. The EPA did not offer an explanation for pulling its employees from presenting at the state of Narragansett Bay. The bay is New England's largest estuary. Many people are outraged that the EPA won't plan for the future of Rhode Island's estuary.
Catalan separatists are blocking efforts by Madrid authorities to take control of the breakaway region. Spanish Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy announced his plan to sack the Catalonian government and cut back some of the powers of its parliament. The Spanish Senate is expected to approve the government's measures on Friday, along with a proposal for fresh regional elections.
Coming up, will the Fannie Mae complex achieve landmark status with a review from the Historic Preservation Review Board fast approaching? That and more when District Wire News returns.